iTiS World of Worship Fellowship. iTiS is in truth and in spirit World of Worship Fellowship, and we get that from John chapter 4, verse 24, the story of the woman at the well, where Jesus is telling her that the time for worshiping on mountains, worshiping ancestors, and so on is gone. And the time is, in fact, here. The time is now where we shall worship God in truth and in spirit. That's where we get our inspiration. So this is iTiS World of Worship Fellowship. Today is our Thursday fellowship, online fellowship via Zoom. We typically meet on Mondays and Thursdays. Monday is normally for Q&A. So if you have a question for us, if you have a question you feel we can tackle, please send it, and we'll be happy to attempt. And then on Thursday, we have what we call a social topic, where again we get a social topic and tackle it from different angles. Today, we're discussing relocation, or leaving your home country and going to another country, typically called a foreign country. Okay? What are some of the factors that would lead somebody to leave their home country? What is attractive in these other countries? Okay, that's what we're going to discuss. And of course, we shall be hearing some real personal testimonies about this. Typically, Africans, migration seems to be one way, mainly. People leave what is typically classified as third world countries, or even second world, to move into the first world. You know? Africans, somebody has done their bachelor's degree, they've done their master's degree, and then they decide to move to a Western capital, where they'll typically do jobs they would not do back home. They'll become cleaners, they'll become parking attendants, they'll wash cars, they'll take care of the elderly, and so on and so forth. Things they would not typically do back in their home countries. But then, of course, those kinds of jobs are very highly paying jobs, in that the amount of money they make probably in a month, or even in a day, someone back home would make in a month, or even in 3 months. So we are here to explore this topic. What drives people to leave their home countries? What are the common challenges, even the victories, in settling in a new country with a new culture? Culture shock is real, homesickness is real. And then, what does success look like when you resettle into a country? Okay. When we are here, like we typically 2 weeks ago, we discussed the Ugandan dream, which is basically 1, 2, 3, 4, one wife, 2 children, a 3-bedroom house, and probably a four-wheel drive. That's what we call the 1, 2, 3, 4, which is the Ugandan dream. So how does that dream change when you go to these countries, America and UK and other such places? Yeah, so like I said, we're going to hear from people who have been there, done that, and allow me to start with Francis. First of all, what motivated you to leave Uganda to settle in the UK for the time that you did? Was it a
I
case
was
of
motivated.
economics? Well, okay, please proceed.
Okay. If you'll allow me, can I give you a broader motivation than mine?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Yeah. I'll sample my family. My family. That is my siblings only. I won't look at even my cousins or whatever. My father's children. My father had 21 children, 11 boys and 10 girls. And out of the 11 boys, 5 of us have gone to the West. Some of them have returned, others are still there. 3 of them are still there, 2 of us returned. And out of the 10 girls, actually, there are only 5 surviving girls. The 5 of the other girls died. But out of the surviving 5 girls, 2 of them are currently abroad, but 3 of them have gone abroad. So out of the 16 children of my dad, 8 of them have migrated to the West at one point, and some of them are still there. And 4 of them are still there. 8 migrated there, 4 of them are still there. And the reasons, actually 5 are still there. The reasons why we moved, for one, I moved because of education. I had a bachelor's degree in Uganda, which wasn't giving me a good paying job. The opportunities were scarce. So after 1 year and 3 months of trying it out in Uganda, I had to change course of study, and I went to England to study ACCA. So my reason was education. And my other brother, with whom I share a mother, is in the US. He's a lecturer in the US, and he also went to the US to study a master's program, and now he did a PhD program, and now he's lecturing in the US. So the two of us went there for education. Then the other, so those are we out of the 8 who moved to the West. Then the other siblings, they went there because of economic reasons. Many of them were in Uganda trying out, hustling out with jobs, but then the ends were not meeting well. They are barely surviving. So what they did, they went abroad. One of them is in Canada. She's in Canada. The other one is in England. In England, as doing two of them are in England currently, and they are doing care work. They are employed by care companies. They got work permits for 3 years each. Another one is in Denmark. He's a Danish citizen. He also went there for economic reasons. He was part of the Ugandan kickboxing team, which went for Olympics. And when he went for Olympics, he disappeared. And he disappeared in 2002, 2002. And ever since he found his way to Denmark, he married a Danish lady, and he has 2 kids now. Actually, he's my father's heir now, the first boy. So he's there. Then we have, I said we have Canada. We have one of them in Canada, one is in Denmark, and 2 are in England. Then the others, the 4 of us, 3 of us came back. I came back, my sister came back. But as I've shown you, only 2 of us went to study. 6 went for economic reasons, because they had the incomes they're having in Uganda were very poor, misery, if I would say. So basically, as to the why we go, those are 2 reasons why my family has gone there.
Okay, how about other people that of course, you know stories from other people as well. What are some other reasons why people move?
I have friends whom I met in England. We became friends when I was in England. There was a gentleman who was rich in Uganda and was a Kabaka's minister in the Uganda government. And those days, you remember the Kabaka used to appoint only rich people who could facilitate their ministries. Actually, if you're a minister in Uganda those days, nowadays under the current curriculum, you had to fuel your vehicle, you had to facilitate your ministry's activities, because my dad was a minister at that time, and he told me he used to facilitate all his ministry activities because that's how it was. The Kabaka Uganda didn't have enough funds to run its government, so the ministers had to be rich enough and had to have the heart for the kingdom to push. So one of the ministers at that time had a spat with the government. He had a spat with the government, and he ran to UK. And he's not the only guy I found there. There's another guy who was a guild guild contestant in Makerere, and was part of the GEMA, and he had issues with the government. And he was my friend. I won't give you his name because he still has issues with the government. And I remember I used to sleep at his place when he went there. I used to sleep at his place whenever I would go for studies in London. But these 2 people, the former minister in Kabaka's government, and was a member of the Uganda Human Rights Commission at one point, and the other gentleman, my former classmate at university, we studied political science with the guy. These people went to UK for political reasons. They ran away from persecution from the government. They ran away for their lives. They feared their lives were threatened, so they ran to UK. And there are several, and I met several refugees. And these refugees were my friends in England. And these guys were there because of political persecution. I also met people from Zimbabwe in England who were there for political reasons. They're running away from the regimes back home. Not that they were poor back home. These guys many of them are doing very well off, but then because they are in the opposition and they said a thing or two against the government, and they had to run off to Britain. So mainly studies, economic reasons, and political reasons. Those are the three.
Political.
Yeah, yeah.
And of course, lately we have the whole
Medical.
homosexuality business. Eh?
Yeah, homosexuality. Actually,
Before medical is
I
now the
yeah,
LGBT.
yeah. We have the LB.
Go on.
Actually, I have friends who have gone to Canada currently. I have friends who went to Canada for economic reasons, but they're masquerading as LGBTQ victims. They have
Mm.
Canadian temporary permits currently, but they are there. They claim that they are being persecuted in Uganda. They are not gay or what, but they are hiding under that umbrella of being LGBTQ. So the LGBTQ, actually, the people, I know several people who are abroad on LGBTQ ticket, but many of them are not even gay or anything, but they're there, they're using it as a cover. Then I have relatives who are abroad for actually relatives and friends who are abroad for. Currently, I have a cousin. I have had cousins mainly who have gone abroad, who have migrated abroad before for health reasons, for treatment basically. I have a friend who went to Canada because they had a kid who had a rare condition whose treatment was in Canada and the US and in Europe. So she had to migrate the whole family. What happened is that this lady, she was uh she was the she was the she was the accountant, principal accountant for National Dairy Corporation, and the husband was the finance manager, general manager, finance manager. He was first finance manager, then he was a little general manager of these guys who distribute Bizigo and all that. I've forgotten the name, African Queen. And these people were earning lots of money that time, 2013. They're earning a lot of money compared for Ugandan standards. They had built a palatial home, which is still there. They were doing bad in Uganda. Then they had a kid, their last born had a condition, a neuro something condition, whose treatment was supposed to be undertaken in Canada and for years. So the whole family migrated to Canada for medical reasons. Up to now, they're still in Canada. The lady told me last time she was in Uganda that she's as soon as this last born gets to 18, they're leaving all the children in Canada and they're coming back to Uganda. So they're basically showing you that the reason why they went to Canada was for treatment of their
It's for
kid. They
medical.
never wanted to go to Canada. For it was medical. So for the adults are coming back, but because the kids have grown up in Canada, they don't understand Uganda. They would rather stay in Canada, and they all have Canadian citizenship. So I think medical is a good one. Is one reason which, but a very few for medical reasons. People who have gone for medical reasons have been basically a bit well-to-do off. Then the ones who have gone for LGBTQ reasons, all the ones I know have gone for LGBTQ reasons. I know about 5 people who are basically in Canada for LGBTQ reasons, but they're just using it as a cover for economic reasons.
Yeah, and of course there's the marriage relationships. Some people get
Mm.
spouses or lovers from these countries and they move. So marriage
Yeah,
is one of those.
yeah. Some people go. Yeah, some people definitely. When talk about marriage, there are people who go abroad to get spouses. No, they don't go to get spouses. They link up because of marriage. They go abroad because of marriage. I have one of my daughters is planning, is in the process of going to the US, but for marital reasons. The fiance is an American who is marrying, in the process of marrying her, and they're going to the US for marital reasons. I've had a cousin also who has gone to the UK in the past for marital reasons. There's someone, a Briton married her and she moved to the UK. She's been there since the late 1990s. 1990s. Then there are people who have gone abroad because of marital disputes and problems. They're already married
Oh
and
yeah.
they split. Yeah, I know one couple very well. I know 2 couples, but one of them were I know them very well. The reason why one of them moved abroad is because they had a serious marital family understanding, and one of them had to move abroad to cease fire. Actually, what some people do, instead of breaking up completely, they just separate by one going abroad. They don't declare that
Yeah.
we've divorced or separated. One just goes abroad. Actually, I knew of another elder when I was in the SDA church. I remember I had an elder, one of my heroes that time. The guy had a wife, and they had family issues. The wife just moved to UK, and that's how they split. The guy got another woman in Uganda, nebamusiba n'omusiba in church, but they had family issues. They had family issues,
Yep.
and people nowadays they don't go to court or what, they all separate. One of them just goes abroad to the West, to Europe or North America. So it's very common. So marital misunderstandings, one of them flies to the West, or someone getting some marital unions, then still someone will go to the West because of that. So either way, it happens.
Okay. So let's also look at it the other way. On the other hand, there are also Bazungu who have moved into, for example, Africa, who have moved into the Near East, the Thailand, and places like that. What are some of their reasons? I know they have Bazungu. Actually, I remember the former German ambassador to Uganda. I remember that guy. I think he now died. When he came here, spent I think 7 years or 8 as ambassador. Then he said, "I'm not going back to my home country." Settled here, I think, married here. Eventually died. So there are also people who move the other direction. So as Africans are running to their countries, those guys are actually coming here. What are some of their reasons? Francis?
Actually, the reasons why Bazungu come here, the ones I've encountered, I know. Actually, many Bazungu who come here, they come here after visiting us for severally. They discover that our weather is better. When they discover that our weather is better, so because our weather is better, they make sure that they return and stay for good. Remember that there was that clip someone sent about Uganda, about some Tanzanian guy wanted some guy from the West wanted to resettle Tanzania. So many of the whites would like to come here because of the weather reasons, climate reasons, and others for economic reasons. Still, the economic reasons are
Because life is cheaper here, right?
yeah, life is cheaper. Actually, I remember there's a place in England. There's a place I stayed for 3 years and 9 months in the south of England, and my landlady was considering relocating to Africa at a later stage in life because life is cheaper here. She wanted to sell off her house in 2 houses in England and come in Uganda and settle, maybe Uganda or anywhere in Africa, which was conducive, and she would live off her money in good weather and at a low cost of living for the rest of her life. So many of them is for because of that climate reason, because of good weather, and
of course,
the
African women,
low cost of
African
living.
girls,
Yeah,
or
some
boys for
African
that
girls.
matter.
Yeah, some African girls bring people here. I have another relative who brought a Swiss guy. The guy built a house, a palatial home, a very nice home in Garuga with a swimming pool and what, very fancy home near Garuga. But the guy was Swiss and he married a Ugandan, that relative of mine. And the girl wanted to come back to Uganda. She couldn't stand the Swiss weather. So the guy had to follow her. And they're here in Uganda. So those reasons too.
Okay, I think we've gone in depth about the reasons. Now,
Yeah.
tell us from your experience when you moved. Which year was this, first of all?
I moved in 2002, October
Uh-huh.
15.
Tell us about your first impressions, experiences, culture shocks, the food, the weather. We've had the UK weather is not one of the best. So just tell us
Yeah.
your initial experience when you moved. Which month did you go? Was it summer? Was it
I went
winter?
in
Which
I went
season?
in autumn. I think October is autumn, going to spring. When we're going to
That's
winter,
just before winter. Yes.
just before winter. Yeah, yeah. So actually,
So what was your experience like?
my shock, the shock was based on my expectations. It was vis-a-vis my expectations because I expected I expected I didn't expect a very adverse weather. Two, I didn't expect very high standards of living. Three, I didn't expect very very tough working conditions. I'll call it that. Tough working conditions and a very unrelating work ethic. So when I went to England, I had very, very positive expectations, very high expectations. Actually, I can only compare them to, I did literature in O level and A level, and there's a book called Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. There is a young man called Pip who left rural England to go to London. And before he went to London, he had very high expectations of London. And when he went there, he was disappointed with what he found in London. The book is called Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. So I was like Pip, I had very high expectations. When I went to England, when I landed in UK, I discovered one, the weather was horrible. In England, they have 11 cold months out of the 12. 11 cold, cool and cold.
Really?
Yes,
Really?
11 out of, they are cool, either cool or cold. Winter is cold, then the other months are cool. And then they have only one warm month. And in the one warm month, they have two very hot weeks. They are hotter than Uganda. Imagine weeks whereby you have temperatures of 38, 37. In Uganda, when have you ever had those temperatures? 38 degrees Celsius. So the
Maybe in
hot,
January this year.
the very hot weeks are too hot. They're only two. Then the rest of the year is, and their climate there, it's very rainy. It rains a lot in England, too much actually, in that the English people got used to the weather. They just walk in rain. They rarely use umbrellas. They just walk in the rain. They are used to the rain, whether it's summer or winter or spring or autumn, it rains. So the weather is horrible. And I'm told, in friends who are in Canada tell me it's worse. Canada is worse than England. And my brother who's in Denmark tells me Denmark is worse than even Canada and Britain. So the weather was horrible. I remember on my first day in the morning, it was the morning of 15th of October 2022. I arrived in England. I arrived at about 4 a.m. after 4. And by the time we drove to Neasden in West London, it was about 6:30. So when we got to the place, it was shining actually outside. It was shining. And when we got into the house, I saw the sun shining outside, and I thought it was okay. So I walked out. When I walked out, I discovered that though it was shining, it was too cool. It was too cold. I couldn't bear it. I had to get back in, put on a vest, put back on my shirt, and put on a jacket. So I had to put on 3 layers in order for me to go out. So that was my first shock. It was the unrelating weather.
Okay, so the first shock was the weather, the rain, cold days.
The rain, the cool weather, the very cold weather, and all that.
How about the food? How did you
The
find the
food
food?
was also shocking. It was not, the English have, I think I would call it healthy food. They have most English have a healthy regime whereby they don't use cooking oil. They rarely use cooking oil. Rarely use cooking oil. They have a lot of steamed foods, steamed fish, steamed beef, steamed pork, They have a lot of steamed foods. Then they have less. They barely have any sugar in their teas and coffees. They rarely take sugar. And if they take sugar, they take these sugars which are not which are healthy. I've forgotten what they call them, but we used to have them. And they take steamed potatoes, steamed whatever. They have to then they have many things are pre-baked, and then they are stored, they are frozen, and then you have to deep freeze them and make them, and they lose taste. And yeah, so their food's a bit stale compared to our spicy Ugandan foods, fresh, spicy Ugandan foods. So the other shock was the food. The food was horrible compared to Ugandan food. It was horrible, but it was
How about the
healthier. The what?
how about the language? The language. Of course, it's English, but
Language,
you know the accent can be.
language as coming from an Anglophone country. It was smooth sailing, and I was in the south. So one thing the English told me, one thing they noted about my English, they told me they could understand me very well. The English, the Southern English people, they speak English, which is the one we know. We hear a lot. It's spoken mainly by the Southerners, people in the south of England. People in Northern England speak English, which is almost close to that spoken by the Scottish. And the people in the south told me that they understand me better than they understand fellow Englishmen from the north. So Southerners in England, they would understand the Ugandan better than they would understand the Northerner from England, and better than they would understand the Scottish and the Welsh speaking English. So my language, my English was good. And one thing I noted is that I would many Englishmen wouldn't understand some of the not even midday-ish English, because there are certain words I would tell them in English, and I would have to explain to them what they meant. Some vocabularies, they are alien to them. They are English, but then I had to explain the language to them. So these people had their knowledge of English. Their accents were English accents, which are okay. Actually, I didn't have accents. They were speaking right English, but then their vocabulary was, especially the lowly educated, amongst whom I worked, because the people I worked amongst were people who stopped in S4. Most of them stopped in Senior 4, equivalent of England, and they work in nursing homes. And their English was very basic vocabulary-wise, and their command of the English geography and history was very poor. I knew more about English history than they did. I knew more about English geography than they did. I would explain the Battle of Waterloo and whatever. I would explain the World Wars and the Churchill and all that. I knew more than, actually, I found out that I knew more about English history and geography than an average Englishman, the English people I met. So they are not very well informed, and their English was very basic. Yeah. So with language, it was that.
So there was no language problem. How about
No.
okay? You already had an admission when you got there, or you had to find an admission?
I had an admission for a university where I never stepped. When I go to England, I went there on the study visa, and I had an admission to Greenwich University. But I went there on false pretense that I had the tuition. I really didn't have the tuition, so I had to work to get raised tuition. So I worked for 11 months, for a 10 and a half months before I started school. Actually, I worked for 11 months before I started school. And because I was admitted to a university, my admission had expired. Actually, I never stepped at the university. I don't know where, it's in London somewhere, but I never stepped there. So after working for 11 months, I raised enough money to study. And by the time I raised enough money to study, I had gone to England to study IT. That was my admission. It was IT, your field, Jet. Then when I got there, by the time I got my tuition, someone convinced me to study accounting. I met a Ugandan, a friend of mine, who convinced me to study accounting. So I ended up in SCCA. And when it came to study, one thing I discovered, comparing the way the lecturers at university level, comparing the way my lecturers in Uganda carried on their work in Makerere University and in England, I discovered these guys were more hands-on. The lecturers were more hands-on. They were not skiving. Many lecturers in Uganda, they would cover maybe 60% of their lectures, and they would skive on the others. They would be there on time, and they would be very engaging. And the way they taught was more practical than what the nature of lectures I had in Uganda. They would try to bring examples which are down to earth, or they would try to bring. It was a more fulfilling education experience in England. And I found I understood the subject matter better facing the English lecturers than when I was facing our Ugandan lecturers.
Facing the Ugandan hustlers who are called lecturers.
Yeah.
Okay. Finally, talk about the cost of living, and then I'll open it up to you. How was the cost of living?
Cost of living
When I traveled last year, I was buying food, 40 euros, 50 euros. I'm like, of course, when you compete it with London money, like,
yeah. I remember cost of living
100,000
was
for a plate
very,
of
yeah.
funny food. Go on.
Cost of living was very high. Actually, let me break it down to you. If you try to live an average life in England and compared to this one, I'm comparing it. I'm even giving comparatives with my siblings who are there currently. If you try to live an average life in England, you may end up consuming 90% of what you're earning. So you have to boil it because the cost of living is so high. I remember when I was in England that time, a plate of food was going for £20. And remember, I was working for £5 per hour before taxes. And the plate of food was going for £20. After taxes, I was
For
working for
4 hours to
four.
get a meal.
I was yeah, and actually
Instead of 5
after
hours then.
taxes, I was working for £4 after taxes. So I needed 5 hours to buy a plate of food. And remember, the
Yes.
English have the same work day like us. They have 8 hours of work. Their shifts are usually 8 hours, inclusive of the breaks. 30 minutes lunch break and 30 minutes a 1 hour break. Two 30 minutes breaks which make 1 hour. So you needed like 5 hours to make a meal. So what we have to do because you're broke, fast food is very cheap, is what's cheap. So I could get a meal, KFC or something from Burger King at £6. Fast food was cheap. So we used to buy fast food in England, which was quite unhealthy, but that was what was affordable. But a real meal, you have to spend like £20 that time. Nowadays it may be maybe £30, I think. I don't know. Maybe higher, about £30.
Okay, and then finally, before I let you go, how about the
Mm,
healthcare? I've had this many in the US that if you need to see a
mm,
doctor, you need an appointment which can be 3 months away. So even if you're in an
yeah.
emergency situation,
It
you're
it
not
was
able
the
to see.
same
So
thing in
how was
England.
it there?
It was the same thing in England. By the way, something in England because I I tried meeting a doctor and I failed. In the 4 years and 4 months I spent in England, I never met a doctor. I only
Oh
met
wow.
doctors in hospitals. Work because I was working in a nursing home and I used to interact with doctors who used to take care of the elderly patients, the elderly clients we had. But I tried to meet a doctor and my appointments were too long. So I used to have appointments for medical conditions and because I was on the waiting list, I would come back to Uganda for vacations before my name could come up. So I ended up having the treatment in Uganda. I used to have my treatments in Uganda. And one trick which Uganda used to do a funny one was they used to drive themselves to the emergency section of the hospitals to get treatment. You drive yourself to an
Oh,
emergency section and they attend to you like an emergency case. If you want to get
that's one way you
treatment,
could get.
yeah,
Mm,
that's the only way you could get immediate treatment. Otherwise, on all other cases, you had to wait on the NHS list, which was you'd be assigned a local GP, general practitioner. And I had my local GP to whom I was assigned for any appointment. So, and they'll put you on a list because they had a long queue you have to follow. And maybe one other thing I can talk about is the work ethic, which was very, very demanding for a Ugandan. If you're used to Ugandan working hours, working style, reporting time to work, and all that, working regime whereby in Uganda you can hide away from work, you can leave a coat somewhere, and then you run off and do your errands, or you can even be at work but not working. So in England, I discovered that I was late on my first day at work by 5 minutes. I got my first warning. And on the second day, I arrived on time. I got my final warning. And the manager told me that
on
any
time.
they told me that you report in time. They told me the earliest I could arrive to work is 15 minutes to time. And they told me that they reported eight was the time when work started, not when I had to change into my working gear or I had to. 8 was when work started. not reporting to work. So I discovered time management. They have pristine time management, the English. And when it came to work, they had to make sure that everything was done the way as per the book. Everything was done. If it was cleaning, you have to clean properly. If you any errand, anything you sign up to do, you have to do it perfectly well.
SOPs basically. You have to work with an SOP.
An SOP. So these people are very professional, and then the supervisor is on your tail. They're making sure that everything's on the point. I remember my last year in England, I was a supervisor, but then I'd learned how to their system, and I was now it's me who was now dishing out the doors. But these people, everything has to be like, you have to write reports, everything has to be to the book. And there was no, and these guys, the moment they discover that maybe you're working and you've done your daily chores and you're working, and then you finish in time, they would find something for you to do. It's not a thing when you can like, I've finished what I was supposed to do, so I can wait until my knock off hours, my clock out hours. No, they get something for you to do. The supervisor would always get something for you to do. So these guys, the work ethic is and it's very tiring for Ugandans. It's very hard for Ugandans to get used to that compared to the way they've been working in Uganda. But it's a very good work ethic to pick from there to here. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Francis. I think I've made you talk quite a bit. Give you a break. If you're
Thank
just
you.
joining us, this is In Truth and in Spirit Well of Worship Fellowship, or what we abbreviate as iTiS, Well of Worship Fellowship. This is our weekly catch up. It happens every Thursday between 6 to 8 p.m. And we normally discuss a social topic in depth. Today we're discussing migrating from your home country to a foreign country. Of course, in the first part of the show, we've been listening to Francis, who has a first-hand experience, having lived in the UK for, I think, 4 or 5 years, maybe. He's been telling us his experience, but of course, we started off by kind of outlining the reasons why people would move. And we outlined economics being the primary one, basically the search for a better life economically. That is the main reason people move. The second one was education, in search of a better education. From Francis' experience, he says those guys taught him better than his lecturers here. So education is the reason people move. And of course, ultimately, it's to do with economics again, because when you finish your master's or your PhD, then of course you need to find a job or you can earn better. So economics is still underlying that one. We talked about political persecution. Obviously, especially here in Africa, if you belong to a political party or movement that is not in power, most likely be persecuted in some ways. So many of them end up running into exile into this country. So political persecution is another. The other one we discussed was LGBT. Nowadays, it's a thing. Even those who are not necessarily LGBT pretend to be LGBT so that they can relocate. Others relocate for marriage and relationships. These days, the world is flat, so you can find a lover in America, in Italy, or wherever. And then you move for marriage and other types of relationships, and many other reasons, of course. And then also we discuss why movement is not just one way. Some of these people actually also come to Africa and choose to stay, and they have their reasons. Some of them like the weather. Francis talked about the weather in the UK, which is quite ugly. Imagine 11 months of rain and cold. Here we have, 2 rainy seasons, and then, I mean, the weather in Africa is much better, especially around the tropics. Of course, life is cheaper here. If you bring $100 here, let's even use Francis' example of 20 pounds for a meal. I don't know how much a pound is, maybe 4 5. So that's almost 90,000 for a meal. If you spread that in our economy here, that would probably do for you shopping for a whole family. So yeah, so economics is another reason, but now the reverse. Life is cheaper here, life is slower. So in the organization I work for, many people do not want to go back to their countries when they retire. Some of them choose to stay in Africa here, or some move to places like Thailand and some of those Asian countries where life is relatively cheap, but the quality of life is comparable to their country. So yeah, those are some of the reasons. Bob is here. Bob will give you a chance to also share experience later on. But let me first just go around. Michezi, let me start with you. Of course, Francis went the legal way. I mean, with the visa and all that. But then there are horror stories. People who go in the Gugu, people who go with a visitor's visa of 3 weeks and then disappear. You know, that type of thing. What have you had in terms of horror stories, Benson?
Those guys who moved from West Africa, the ones who crossed the Mediterranean Sea on canoe boats just to go to England, to go to Europe. Then also the ones that I also saw a story of some Nigerian guy who was on a plane, was it in the where they keep the luggage, and then he couldn't make it. He died on the way. Is it something like that? But now the Francis has given us a background of his story, but I wanted him to also tell us about the push factors that are pushing these migrants to go. Because if Francis had got a job, from what he was explaining, if he had got a job 1 year after university, then probably he was not going to go. So usually the migrants that we're seeing here are people that are being pushed, thinking that maybe there is better life in the UK. Even that the Ankubacheyos that we have here, some of them are the people that are actually being pushed, going to the UK.
So actually, if I can give some information quickly. Yeah, you're very spot on. If I had gotten a good job, even an average job after university, I would never have gone to the UK. I was frustrated in Uganda. I was earning 180K for my job in Uganda at that time. 180,000 in Uganda. And that was my net, and no allowances, no benefits, nothing, for up to the time I went to the UK. So if I had gotten an average job, earning maybe that time, maybe 300K or 400K, I would never have gone to UK. So my push factor was economic. Yeah.
Yeah, and then now, Francis, now on apart from the push factors, the people who go, someone is not pushed, he's okay, but then he just wants to go because he has been told that you see the systems here in Uganda are no longer working, but in the UK they have better systems, they have better healthcare, the water is good. There are some people who move because of that. They are attracted. They are not pushed, but then they are just attracted by the good life of Europe.
I've seen people like that. Actually, when I went to UK, I met where I used to stay. We used to have a Ugandan house, a house rented by my cousin, and we are several Ugandans used to stay there. At one point, we had 20 people staying there, and then some kids there were from wealthy families in Uganda. And I remember one of them was who became a very close friend of mine. This was a young girl who came to England for her to experience England because of to live there because of the good life which she expected to be there. The mother was she was a top lady in ISO. And then I remember she became my friend, and she told me why she's in England. And there was another guy whose father was an MP, and there was another young lady whose father was a top musician in Uganda, Eli Wamala's daughter. And Eli Wamala had sponsored her to come to England to experience the good life. And I remember all these people, they went to UK because of the good life you expect to find there. And trust you me, all of them were, all the people I found there were disappointed with expectation versus reality. All the ones I've talked about, they were disappointed with what they found. What they found is not what they dreamt of or what they saw in movies, in the few English movies they had watched. But then, as you say, that's a pull factor. Many people go there. We have a proportion of people who go there because of the good life they expect to find there.
And the last one, you didn't talk about the racism, eh? How was it? Did they throw a banana at you at some point?
Racism. Actually, there is a statement I made to some English people, which I'm going to make to you, which I'm going to repeat. I told these people that the ethnic discrimination and tribalism we have in Uganda is way higher than the racism in England. In the 4 years, and I don't know whether they do it intentionally, but over and above, these people would go overboard to make sure that I feel comfortable. I first lived in London for 5 months. And I went to the south of England where I stayed for the rest of for the rest of my stay in UK. And I discovered these people, many of them went out of their way to make me feel at home. I experienced 2 cases of racism, 3 cases of racism in England. And they are all by old people who are not very used to the multicultural England. 2 of them were residents. These are people, the elderly clients, we used to attend to, and they were mild. It was mild racism. Like I remember one lady told me something which I didn't discover it was racism until someone told me. The lady asked me whether I'd come on a ship. Did you come to England on a ship, in the lower deck of the ship? And what they mean is that, were you a black slave? That's what they're meaning. Did you come to England as a black slave? And there is another one who called me. She didn't call me the N word, because that one is she called me, I think, something like a monkey. She just called me monkey. And she got the wrong end of me. I beat up I beat her up twice, actually. I beat up that lady twice. And because she called me a monkey. And the other guy, the third case, someone deflated a neighbor deflated we were only 2 black people who lived in a certain village called Donington, Campshire, for about 4 years. And it's only me who had we were only 2 black people and living in one house, and it's only me who had a vehicle. So what this guy did, the neighbor, on several occasions, he deflated my car tires, and I didn't know it was him. So when I discovered it was him, I had a birthday party, and he had come to make noise he had come to complain that we're making noise. And that's when he made a comment about him having deflated my car tires, and he also got a beating. But I remember those are the only cases, and he was a guy. He was in the 60s. I think he was in the 60s, either late 50s or 60s. So those are only cases of racism. But over and above, these people were too welcoming. The English were, to me, they are too welcoming in London, in class, when we went for the SSA classes, in people I worked with. The majority, I worked in an area in a nursing home called Bupa Argyle's Nursing Home. We had 70 employees, and over 60 of them were English. 60 were English, but they used to go out of your way. I remember whenever I would go to work, I would get hugs, pecks, and from almost all English ladies. They would, to make sure that even many of them are not even my friends. They would call you nice names. They would make sure that they invite you to all their parties, even if they're not your friends. And they did this always to make sure that I felt like I felt part of them, like I'm part of them. They would invite me to places. They would buy me presents. They would do what? And I knew I was also given a promotion at work before I got a qualification. I studied nursing. I was studying a certificate in nursing, and after my studies and my exams, immediately after I was given a promotion. Yet the policy was that you only got a promotion after the results were back and you had you got that badge, the nursing badge. I didn't have the badge. I got a promotion in 1 week, and the reason I got a promotion was because I was black. So the racism was very, very mild in England, very mild. And actually, I will state it again. I found the English more inclusive and less racist as compared to Ugandans. Being in Uganda, we are more ethnically divisive and segregative than the English were to our race.
Okay, thank you, Francis. Now let me, Peter. Peter is there. Peter, are you working? Peter, are you there? I guess not. Isaiah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
What is the will of God in moving to another country? What does God say?
Well, first of all, God doesn't have these countries on his map of the world. So there is nothing like another country before God.
Some of us think our countries were given by God. What are you saying?
Yeah, so we should start from there, because this language of another country is a foreign language. It is a language of desperate times and conflict places. That's why I have this language of another country. Number one. Number two,
Language of crisis.
yes. So God has never created you to stay where you are and to identify yourself with a place. God created you. The Bible says that you go into the world and eat it. So things like immigrants, things like citizens, passports, visa, passports, identity cards. These are just documents of conflict zones and foreign places and geographies. So it is important to understand that the original plan of God was for you to go wherever you want to go. And no one should actually stop you from going where you want to go and from settling where you want to settle. So the whole idea of we own this place, this is our place, it is not your place, you are a foreigner here, that is the sin setting. It's not the righteous setting of God.
So when Trump is deporting what he calls immigrants, that is a crisis. That is crisis management.
Yes, that is problem already. It is for you to have a national ID and a passport and to have borders, these imaginary borders, because these borders are just imaginary, demonstrates how problematic the world is and how things are not in order like they should be. So to answer your question, what is the will of God of going to another country? He has never had any problem. He's actually wondering why you are not going wherever you want to go. You should go wherever you can live and wherever you can stay. As far as God is concerned, you are free to live anywhere. The only problem that God has is any one of us attempting ownership of anything that is not original with us. Yes. So that is why he forbid those who first worshipped him or to whom he first revealed himself to, not to own land. He categorically told them that the land belongs to me. You don't own land. Because he understood the problem with that. And moderator, if you allow me, I would like to say this now that we are discussing this subject. Some people are poor and they are going to die poor. Not because they are lazy, they are actually hardworking, not because they are stupid, they are actually brilliant individuals, but they are going to die poor and in pain and unfulfilled for only one single reason, because of where they are.
We are on God's earth. What do you mean where we are?
Yes, you are on God's earth, yes, but on which part of God's earth? Because I can assure you, some of you are not designed for that place and that geography. So it is very important for you to wake up one morning and think about your geography, because your environment is very important to your development and fulfillment and happiness in your life. So you're going to work very hard, harder, and nothing will turn out fulfilling for only one single reason, because of where you are. So it is important in life to move around. Yes, Pembana.
Now, from the point that you've just made, how do you explain the changes?
Your network
The original, hello?
Yes.
Tembana, your network is bad,
Hello?
so you also need to move.
Yes, Pet. How do I explain the changes?
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes,
The
yes.
US where it is
Uh,
originally it was occupied by.
Can you type your question so that we don't miss it? Fed.
I think I was talking about how the US was occupied by the Red Indians, and then these white settlers came and took over.
Well, now that he even brings out that example, we hope that we do not misrepresent him. But Ped, if you can hear us, please type that question clearly. But let us just fumble with the little bit that we had of your question. Then you correct us as we go on.
Hello, I was trying to. Is this better?
Yeah.
Hey. Now, the issue of the geography and the races, the issue of the geography and where the people are. Where the Americans are right now, that was a land for some other people. They came, displaced them, killed them, and they occupied it, but they are prospered. So in relation to what you've said, the location of where we are, we may not be successful because of where we are. How do you explain that?
Yes, it is actually self-explanatory in even what you've said. The so-called Americans moved from where they are, and they were not thriving from wherever they are, and they thrived in the United States, in that place, the United States. They thrived there. If they had not moved and stayed wherever they are, we wouldn't have that great nation today as it is. And it wouldn't look the way it looks like. But it is because people decided to move away from where they are. The Americans did not drop from heaven or from a vacuum. No, they came from somewhere.
So the blessings, if I'm to quote them, are they with the people or with the geography?
It is with that's a very interesting question, Pete. It is with you and where you are. Because my point was that there are some people who are going to stay poor until they die. Not because they are failures in life, not because they are weak, not because they are stupid, not because they are not working, but because of where they are. You are just not designed there. This is not witchcraft. No, no, it's not. It's a principle.
So you have to move to somewhere to prosper.
Yes. Sometimes after
Okay.
trying for like 15 years and things are not working out, please move. You might not even need to get out of Uganda. It might even need to be from Karamoja to Teso. These stories are all over. You ask around, people will tell you. There's a fantasy here that the Ugandan dream is in Kampala, isn't it? But there are some of us who were born in Kampala and we are still poor. Thank you. I hope now you understand. And there are those who came from Buddu, Masaka, and they own the city. And they couldn't do what they have done in Kampala if they stayed in Buddu, Masaka. So sometimes you need to move away and go to a different place. Moderator. Unfortunately, Bob has dropped off here. Bob is a scientist, he's a lab technician who deals with viruses. He's in the United States. He's sitting in the labs, in the United States lab. This Bob Ugandan. But in the country where he is, there are people on the streets in the United States. Are you guys following?
Jobless people.
Jobless people and homeless. Jobless and homeless. Jobless and homeless Americans. So, gentlemen, this is a very serious issue. When God said, I have given you the world, that's what he meant. I always remind you of my philosopher teacher who always told me that the first law in life is to know thyself. Now, after you've known who you are, you need to contrast that knowledge of who you are with where you are. Gentlemen and ladies, where you are is very, very key to your development, to your success, and to your failure. You are going to succeed or fail based on where you are. That is part and parcel of your development and growth.
So you're saying the geography is an important piece of the puzzle of this thing we call success.
Exactly. Exactly. You need to understand this. The earlier you understand this, the better. Now, that geography means a lot of things. People, the opportunities there, and everything surrounding you. Okay? The ecosystem dictates that the universe is always trying to fit you in. Forget this witchcraft and these religious mythologies, etc., that there are powers, you need to go and invoke powers. You don't need to invoke powers. There are already powers and waves in the place. Where you are is a piece that contributes to whether you will fail or succeed. Now, there are people who have gone to those European countries because now the paranoia is that Europe and America, every African thinks that if you go there, you will succeed. There are many Africans who have gone to European countries and the United States and stayed there for 10 years and come back to Africa with nothing, zero.
Many of them fear to even come back.
Many of them fear to even come back. But it's not because these guys are not working. They are working, actually. 18 hours, 16 hours, shift after shift. But that's not their place. I normally tell the story of my friend Fred Sawagoodday, who went to the UK where Francis was. And everything didn't work out. And when the guy came back here, he got rich in a period of 2 years after he had come back. So moderator, my point in all was, as we are discussing this topic, you need to sit down and ask yourself, am I designed for this geography? Am I designed for this geography? How come I'm doing all the right things and things are not adding up, and other people are doing, in fact, not all the right things, but things are working for themselves? You could start small. Start by changing from Buddu to Kampala, or from Kampala to Buddu. Because God has created you to traverse the entire world, not to have an ID and those imaginary boundaries. That's the point that I wanted to make.
Okay, thank you. Tom, can you talk? I know Tom is one of those who left their home area. Originally from Teso, Karamoja is not. Would you actually agree?
Listening first.
Panji, Tom, I can't hear you.
Let me listen first. I'm learning a lot.
Okay, fine. Okay. Peter. Peter, can you hear me? I think that's a very interesting concept of, hey, you need to look at yourself, know thyself, and then see whether you can survive in the area. So maybe we can go a little bit into that.
Yes, I can hear you.
What's your comment so far, Peter? How are you feeling about this?
Oh.
And when are you moving?
Whoa! I think moving is healthy. Moving is healthy, and but you can never be certain until you have moved. And we have a challenge as humans. We have the fear of the unknown, or what I think somewhere we have called the logic of the miniskirt. And a miniskirt half exposes what you admire. So you have half information or half knowledge. Until you explore that knowledge is when you realize that you are just whetting an appetite, or you really got the reality. So I think transference, migration is normal. It's okay. It's healthy. But we need to be aware of those two factors. We need to be aware of those two factors. Half information, or reality versus appearances. And probably swallow our pride if we discover that where we migrated to is not what we expected. We need to swallow our pride and return home, and return to another where we were first. I think that's what we need to
move
do.
To another place.
Yeah, or move to another place. In other words, one of the things that I've come to realize is that to the largest extent, we are creatures of the public, or we are creatures of public, where public here means society, what people say. So people die in marriages, people die at their jobs, people die in their religions, people die in their lines of work, because they are not living themselves. They are living according to the template which they never participated to institute. So there are times when we need to strike the balance. to know when to leave as an individual or when to leave as a member of the public. I submit for the moment.
Thank you, Peter. Isaiah, I'm back to you. I want us to go a bit deeper into this thing of analyzing. How do I analyze my circumstances and say, yes, I need to move? For example, we know people in America and other places work. I mean, the regular person, they have 2 jobs to be able to make ends meet, to basically just survive. So why would I leave my 9 to 5 in Uganda to go to America, for example, just to survive? Yet here I have time to attend a Zoom call. On the weekend, I can go see my mother and things like that. So why would I trade this for that fast-paced life? Isn't that analysis also partly what you'd call analyzing your greed? Or greed is another matter altogether as you make this analysis? Just so you can understand.
Hello?
Yes.
Whose question was that?
It was yours, actually. Is the analysis, are you just analyzing your greed, or what else are you analyzing as you make a decision to move or to stay?
You see, that whole philosophy of knowing yourself is very foundational in in responding to various questions about life and living. For example, when you know thyself, then you get to know your purposes. Why are you here? Why you were created? What you would want in life, etc., etc. Now, for instance, what exactly do you want in life? What do you want? Because you see, we live in a capitalistic world where you are hyped beyond even your wants and your desires and your goals. You no longer have goals, okay? But you have other people's goals. Other people set the goals, and it's not you who is setting the goal. You need to come to that place of knowing who you are, what you really want, and then find out where what you want is. Where is it? Now that you know what you want, now that you know purposes, where is the place for all of that? Where is it? For example, we shouldn't even demonize the European countries, because the reason as to why they work the way they work is because of their geography. They are fighting against existing disasters. I mean, perpetual disasters. Their environment is not good naturally, if I'm to use that word with quotes. Their environment is not good. They are always fighting against a situation and a circumstance in nature. And that's why they work the way they work. Okay? And it's not that they are limited there. They were also not created to stay there. They can move if they wish to. But they have decided to stay. Now, if you decide to stay in such an environment, you're going to work the way that environment requires the citizens of that environment to work. So that's how they're working like that. Then in the process, that also has created the spirit of consumerism. They do too much production, and that production also in the long run affects their welfare of the welfare of the environment and their attitudes about life. So there's too much competition, too much pressure, and they end up not leaving, but staying there to work and serve that environment they have created. For me, it really doesn't make any logic, because why do you have healthy skyscrapers, okay, with sick people? Because that is what is happening in Europe. People are sick. I mean, sick. They are sick in the body. They are sick in the mind. They are sick sociologically. Families are very dysfunctional. They are sick spiritually. They no longer believe in God. They actually don't living. They are just operating like machines. So you just need to sit down and calm down and find out exactly what do we need. What do we need as individuals, as a country? Do we need all this nuclear so that we have all these nuclear plants? Do we need all this oil? For what? For what exactly? Do we need all this wealth piled, not used? Because these rich countries have wealth piled, not used. The wealthiest country with homeless people. When you look at some parts of Chicago, Bob is not here, you look at something that looks like Kamocha in the United States. Something that looks like Kamocha or the Mungiki, is it where the Kenyans, this Bayai, the Bayai of
Kibera.
the Kidera. Yes, you will see something like Kidera in the United States, in a country that has piled up all that, and a country that is sending billions to Ukraine, to the Ukrainian war. So let's bring it down. What do you want? Who are you and what do you want? Then work hard for that. If you achieve it, start living. In fact, you don't even need to start living after you achieved it. You can live as you are pursuing your goals. You can live. But that is a hard one. You first of all need to come in terms with who you are and what exactly that you want. So this whole thing of greed, etc., greed is a given. Greed is here. We are greedy. And actually, this whole greed concept is even deduced to the idea of knowing yourself. Sometimes you also need to come to the truth of confessing, I am greedy. And then you treat it as a problem. You don't treat it as a situation. The problem here, we have treated greed as a situation and we have given it names and terms. This is not greed. This is capitalism. This is how the system works. This is economics. You see in the economy, but no matter how many words we use to defend and define what is wrong is wrong and is affecting us. But moderator, the most important thing to know here for me is, where are you? How are you working with where you are? And how are you thriving with where you are? If you are not, please move. Thank you.
Thank you. Francis has had his hand up for a while. I'm sure he also wants to say something about knowing thyself.
Thank you.
And the opportunities
Yeah.
around you.
Thank you. I'm just bringing to life Pastor Isaiah's earlier contribution about some people making it in life. They have to move from their geographies. I'll just add a tiny twist that some people, in order to make it into life, they have to move, even if it's temporarily, to some geographies to get some exposure. And you don't have to move permanently. Some people don't. You don't have to move permanently to a certain geography. Sometimes you have to get a different geographic exposure, which is going to help you move in the right direction for your life. So let me give an example. With me, I don't see my life the way it is now if I had not gone to the UK. Everything that has informed my economic and social situation currently was because I was in the UK. One, by the time when I left Uganda, I was a social scientist. I had a bachelor's degree in social sciences, driving me in the direction of a 180,000 job. When I went to UK, I studied accounting. When I went to UK, I discovered the environment in UK helped me discover my passion for construction. And the accounting plus the construction put together, plus the other thing, which was the work ethic, it built a work ethic within me, which I never had. I was very laid back, like many Ugandans when I was in Uganda. When I went there, my time management skills, my work ethic, the exposure brought up things in me which have helped me to be what I am today. I don't see myself, I see a worse of a very, very bad love Francis Rugolobi if I had not gone to UK for that period. So sometimes we need to move from where we are, get another form of exposure, and we can come back to Canaan, to our Canaan, and live a better life because of the movement.
Okay, thank you. Omichwezi, I hope your network is better now. Can you say something and hear if your network is good? I wanted to know when you're moving to another place. I know you left Kabohe, came to Kampala. Now, when are you leaving Kampala?
Hello?
Yes, good.
Hey, hello? Yes. I don't know if the network is okay.
We can hear you.
Hey, about the moving, I was still trying to understand the concept of the moving. Okay, of the your prosperity can only manifest if you're operating in a certain environment. That is the thing that I'm still trying to understand, meaning that if you stay in Masaka and maybe God planned that your prosperity is going to be in Jinja, you may never be prosperous if you stay in Masaka. That is the thing I was trying to understand, that I'd fully not yet comprehended properly. And that even this brings the question I'd actually even asked Isaiah in the inbox. Then why should God put people in geographies where, in quotes, they are not okay, in quotes where they may not actually prosper? Why doesn't he create them directly in geographies where they're supposed to prosper? And then the last one on that, you see the different continents that we have, the people are somewhat different. The physical attributes of those people, wherever they are somewhat different. Even the ones here in Uganda, if you look at tribes, there are some tribes where the physical attributes of the people in those tribes are different, depending maybe on their geographies or their geographical locations. So me, I would think that naturally, because of how they've been created, is the physical attributes are supposed to be compatible with those environments they are in. So me, that is the thing that I'm trying to understand and comprehend. If the Europeans had not come to Africa, then would we be talking about the exporting ourselves to Europe and America?
Okay, later Isaiah attempt that.
Yeah,
I hope you got the truth.
yes, I did. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, I want to start with the last bit of Betson's question. Yeah? The body is the greatest weapon, and actually the strongest weapon. And the secret of the strength of the body is its ability to adapt to each and every environment that you place it in. That's the miracle of the body. So, Hudson, what you see, like people looking like the environment, it is the body actually adapting. In evolution science, they call it that evolving. But I'm a creationist. I don't believe in so much evolution to a certain extent. Now, your body, like Francis was telling us, he left Uganda where there was good nature, good whatever, good weather, But he lived in the UK comfortably. He did. He took the same body there, and that same body thrived in the UK in that kind of weather, because that's what our body is. So that cannot actually make you stay where you are and where you are not thriving, because you're saying, me, I'm made for, no, you are not made for there. You're not made for there. You can stay all over. You're a human being. We have the same anatomy. That is why we share the same medicine. So you can stay wherever. Your body and your stature is in relation to your environment. Place this body somewhere, let it start moving on those mountains, it will tune itself to that mountainous area. You go to the plains, your body will just tune itself to that. That should not be the reason as to why you are dying in one place which you ought to have left years ago, if need be. So for me, really, that's not an excuse. People look like their places because of the places. They don't look like those places because of who they are. No, it's you guys go to the gym and you see what the body can become. You build those muscles, they start protruding, you make the six packs. That's the body. That's how it is. That's how it is. And you can literally live anywhere. You can. Good. One. Now, the other point that I wanted to make is I had tried to respond in the text messages, but I think that didn't make the whole thing come out. Okay. Good. Thanks. Sorry. Now, Pedson, God creates people. Okay? Places them on planet Earth, but he does not place them on an earth with borders. God created you and you were born in this geography of Uganda, but that does not mean that you were destined for this planet. I mean, for this place and geography. Your creation is not your destiny. In fact, in creation, God sets you free. He sets you off. So you can be born in the United States, but you're going to thrive in Uganda. You can't be born in Uganda, but you will only thrive in the US. Move. Don't say that God created me here. Hey, did he station you? He didn't station you. Where are the limits which he limited you by in Uganda that you can't live? First and foremost, he has nothing on his map like Uganda. No. He placed you. And in fact, you can look at our ancestors. Our ancestors were always moving. Did you notice that in history? Because it is a record in history that our ancestors were moving all the time, and their movement was unlimited. But now we are building fences where we don't want to live, we own, and we are stationing ourselves. This has affected us, hence the wars and the problems that we are struggling with. So the idea that God created in Uganda, therefore we must die in Uganda, it comes from the pits of hell. You need to find out who you are, look at that environment around you, compare it and contrast it with who you are and your goals and your abilities, then find out whether that's where you're stationed to be. Now, when we talk about the environment, we're also talking about the people. We are also talking about the people. Jesus said that the prophet has no honor in their motherland. And he was referring to the kind of disrespect he had in Nazareth because he was raised there for the past 18 years. So sometimes, for even your career to grow, you need to move away from those who despise it and who don't see value in it, and go around people who actually see value in it. And that's how you're going to grow. You and I support football, Peterson. Some players work better under a certain coach, and they are worse under a particular coach. It's not because they are bad players. No, it is the environment. You change the club and you become a star. Mo Salah failed in Chelsea. He failed flat. Kevin De Bruyne failed in Chelsea. Flat. They thrived elsewhere. We need to move, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, moderator.
Thank you very much. Most of the guys have dropped off, but I think they've got the gospel moving. We need to move. They have moved. They have moved too fast. They should have waited for 8 o'clock, 15 minutes from now.
We should warn people from moving so fast.
Don't move before our Zoom ends, please. Anyway, it is well. It is well. Flavia, are you there? You've been quiet. Have you been following this?
Yes, please. I've been following.
What are your thoughts? Are you also planning to move now?
Well, not now, but I'm likely to move anytime. I will do so. Once I don't prosper where I am, then I must move to another place so that I achieve my goals. Yes.
I think that's the biggest takeaway from today's discussion, not so? Don't be a slave to where you are born or where you're raised or where you are now. Just move. Move to another place. Or change the sociology. Sometimes it's just changing sociology. That is also movement. Okay, thank you very much. Omuchwez, have you been answered with your 2 questions?
Hello?
Yes. Hey, you've muted yourself. Said. Have you been answered? I don't know why you keep muting.
And I don't know why Peterson finds this thing very difficult, because their family, his family is prosperous in Kabohe, and when you look at the nature of their family in Kabohe, you cannot imagine Peterson failing in Kabohe. But if you ask Peterson, he will give you some answers that he might not thrive like he's thriving in Kampala if he stayed in Kabohe.
And you see the measures that we're using are quite the measures that we're using in terms of success are different. Because if you make a comparison with someone who has really hit it, then it makes some of us not to be successful. You see, So the best that we're supposed that we look at for success, and now we'll water down the argument that we're having, because if someone is stayed in the village, but this person has food on the table and has maybe managed to educate his children to a certain minimum level, then we'll consider that person successful. Even the person,
and no one is denying that person.
So even the one who has moved to Kampala, or even the one who has moved to the UK, everyone will be considered successful.
Yes, we have no problem with that. That kind of the definition of success. We have some time back made the definition of success here. What we are talking about, we're now discussing failure, failing.
But you see, success and failure, they are subjective, or they are relative terms. Now, what do you consider someone who has failed as someone who has failed?
The Baganda have got the good word. Omuntu eyeremereddwa. I don't know how to translate that in English.
Kati nanti omuntu yeremererwa, what are the parameters?
The parameters are you are homeless, you don't have food, you cannot sponsor your children to school.
Very good. Now, people who stay in villages, because me, I work for a social protection project, and at least we have moved to what we have seen what we call poor of the poorest. Those basic things that you have talked about, apart from education, is they have food and they have shelter. So do we call that failure?
Yes.
When someone has food and someone has a shelter,
yes,
still is a failure.
Yes, why are you there? That's why your organization is there.
But you see now, that's why you see some of the things that we okay. I may not want to talk here because this is being recorded, but
Yes.
you will well know that some of these programs, even if they are there, even if they are not there, the livelihood of these people may not be changed.
But you see, Mr. Simwe, food and shelter, which kind of shelter?
Now you see, that's why you bring in the relativity.
No, the relativity.
Someone is staying in a hut.
They are basics. They are basics.
Okay, someone, it's called the manyata. It's a hut which is grass thatched.
And that is not a problem. That's not I don't have a problem with that. But okay, I don't have a problem with that grass thatched house. I don't have any problem with it. But what is expected? Because even in that environment and that community of grass thatched houses, those houses have qualities and standards. So there are those with poor standard, and there are those with agreeable and normal standard of living. The standard of living has got its basic in each and every community and has got standards in each and every community. So there are some people, Pedson, who have failed even with the basic standards of that environment. Those we are asking sometimes before we deviate, those we are asking that you need to move maybe that's not your place. You move. Go and pursue life elsewhere.
Now, this is my argument. I'll give an example. I'll start from the shelter that you're talking about. In 2022, the president was in Karamoja, and these people have been staying in those houses which are roofed by grass. And an idea came which was political. They say that now this Uganda, it should be transformed. Let's buy them iron sheets. I want you to see the angle that we're coming from. They said that these people are not comfortable with their houses which are roofed by grass, so they wanted to buy them what? They wanted to buy them shelters, iron sheets. But these Karamajongs have been living like this for so many years, and they are very comfortable and they are surviving. Some of them, you saw the population where the expectancy rate was 71 years. But then we think that, no, this is time to buy for them iron sheets. That is one. Two, you see this issue that we're talking about of migration. Villages have been left empty because of that same perception. If you go back home with a car, then the neighbor's son is going to be like, let me also go to Kampala and I work. Maybe I can become like this person also. But in real sense, this person is okay in the village compared to him migrating here. But because of the relative comparison between this and this, we always ought to chase for that new challenge or new life, thinking that it will be better or will equal with the ones that we are inspiring to be.
Okay. Earlier on, unfortunately, the moderator has not helped me, but earlier on, I talked about following other people's standards and not your own standards. Does anyone remember when I was talking about Europe?
Mm.
Now, the major problem here, Pedson, is when a certain group of people sets standards themselves, and they term it standards of living. But what we mean here by a career is
Let's go back to, okay, for you, what would be your measure for standard of living? Where should it come from?
From you. What do you want? What are your dreams? Because that's why I was emphasizing knowing yourself. What are your dreams? What do you want? What is your purpose?
And Kat, now I gave an example of food and shelter. You say that is a failure.
No, anti-food and shelter is a failure because that's not all a human being needs. Person, you don't want food and shelter alone.
What else
we are dealing with a particular individual. What do you want as an individual? Would you settle for food and shelter? Those are basic needs. Everyone needs that. But what do you want to be? What do you want to be? The environment which you are can provide food and shelter. Is that all you want in life? Then you say, no, I want to build a school where I can sponsor children. Then can the environment help you achieve that goal and that purpose? Who are you? For instance, it's very good thing you are even interested in football, not just a supporter, but you are even involved at a club level, Peterson. You know very well that there are some talents that will never reach their levels which they should be until they leave a certain geography. This is why when you identify this young boy here of 13 years and you have the potential to take him to a particular football academy, take that boy there. Don't say, even in Uganda there's football. You play football even here. You don't start bringing up arguments. There are 11 players in Uganda and 11 players in Europe. The pitch is this size. No. There's something that this boy will never achieve until he goes to a certain particular academy, even though there are football players in Africa and in Uganda where he is. So what do you want? The other thing is a foreign state where people start setting standards of living for others. For instance, for me, there is no reason as to why, okay? There is no reason as to why we should change grass thatched houses or grass roofed houses with iron sheets. Actually, for me, grass is more expensive and more classy than iron sheets. For me.
And you see because that is where the debate is coming from. You said that standard should be from the individual.
Yes.
So here we are having a standard that is being set by the politicians.
Foolish leaders and greedy leaders, because they want to strike a deal in buying those iron sheets, they are abusing the whole thing. Because the Karamadjongs don't need iron roofed houses. Their needs are actually different for them to thrive in the environment. You have not addressed the actual needs. You are addressing actually your own personal political needs.
That's why you see me as telling you, for them, their needs, as long as someone has cows there in as his possession and food. And okay, some of them, they even need guns because they use them for cattle rustling. That is for them. They even don't go to school. They don't. Now, when for you come and say this is a failure, but for him, he's okay. He's satisfied.
No, Peterson, there are standards. If you start with a single Karamajong, because the opportunity we have is that Ariong is here and he's also their son. If you ask individual Karamajongs, they will tell you their dreams, and those dreams actually will be even outside having cattle, having a gun. Those dreams will be outside that. We are talking about those individuals, not this umbrella that you look people in. The Baganda love matoke. Not every Muganda loves matoke. The way the Bahima and the Batusi love rearing cattle. Not every Muhima is for that. They want to go further on that. Anyway, we've taken the whole time from other people.
Mhm. Okay.
I wanted to give Bob a chance. I don't know if he can talk. Yeah, Bob, just briefly, we're running out of time, but just share your experience, maybe your reasons for moving, where you think where you are is better than Uganda, and so on and so forth. Briefly, Bob.
Yeah, sorry, I had to be in and out. I couldn't get it early. Yeah, for my reason for moving, I guess it's kind of twofold. I actually did not intend in the beginning to move, because I've been traveling to these countries, US, UK, spend there 2 months, 3 months, go back home. So I originally I didn't have intentions to move kind of permanently until this assignment for me came where I was staying here for a longer time. So when I spent longer time of 2, 3 years here, that was when the issue of me staying actually came in. So uh, one of the major things is that I'm a researcher. I'm in science, and the technology of doing science, of achieving my goals, was really kind of limited when I was stationed back home. So I needed to come here and kind of get exposed to the high tech. And so the reason was kind of goal oriented, because my goal is to really find a cure for HIV, God willing, fingers crossed. So I wanted to, so when I was in Uganda, I was more on the receiving end. And what I mean by that is that products were being made from either UK or US, or by these pharmaceutical companies, like vaccine candidates for HIV, and then they would send them to us in Uganda when they are at clinical trials phase in human studies. I mean, they would also do their human studies here, but for us, that's the only level we would get in. We were not able to initiate the process of starting to make our own products. And I wanted to get into that. So that is why I moved anyway, because I couldn't, I wanted to come to the real source and interact with scientists who were actually developing the real vaccines, the real drugs. So if that answers a bit of your question, I hope that answers that.
Yes, it does.
And when I came here now, when you compare to the way of life, definitely, I heard when Francis was submitting earlier on at the beginning of the talk, definitely the way of life of here is completely different. These are some of the things I've highlighted to you guys in other chats. There's more safety, not that there's no dangers here, but I explained once, like for example, my time in Uganda, I don't know how many times I was mugged, or my wife's bag was mugged and she was dragged on ground while she was trying to hold on to it, until I advised her, next time if the guy pulls the bag, just let it go, because you will end up getting permanent damage of your legs will break or stuff like that. So, and this was like almost an everyday thing. So whatever she would come from work and she has to walk that distance from where the taxi puts her to home, it was really, she would always look over her shoulder or wait for someone she knows that goes in the same path and they walk together, or whenever she would get out of the taxi, she would call me and say, hey, come and pick me, I'm out of the taxi. So I would walk and then we can walk together for her safety. So these are some of the things that she doesn't have to worry about when she's here. You don't have to look over your shoulder. I mean, once in a while, you've had people shooting, in malls or in whatever, but this is like once in a while. It's not like something that you have to worry about every day. So in terms of way of life, definitely, the two places are different. So all these factors now said, you know what, I think we need to stay here a little longer, maybe bring the kids here, they get exposed to the school, the nice education, and then they can take their own decision whether they want to stay in the US or they want to come back home to Uganda and do their life there. So in brief, those are two things that really, among the things that relate to us, but the culture is completely different, as I mentioned also. You have to really
Tell us about
adjust.
some culture shocks you went through very briefly. One or two.
Yeah, so for example, here, people really live on a budget strictly. In Uganda, people are a little bit open to spending, okay? So for example, here someone will budget the money that's going to take them through the month, how much they're going to have for lunch and all that. In that any event that occurs in between there's something they have to sacrifice. This is why if someone invites you at their home, you don't do like what we do in Uganda. If someone has invited you to their home, you go and you eat. Here, someone invites you, you have to ask them, what should I bring? Because they know that this is now getting out of their budget. So everyone should contribute for us to have a good time. So those are some of the culture shocks. So the first you go, you realize that the only one who has gone without anything, everyone is bringing something, and you look an old man out. So the issue of really living by budget strictly, and so people live in their own world, like they're not opening up, because whenever they open up, it means that they're going to spend more, they're going to worry more about another person. People here mainly work. The work ethic, I think even Francis talked about it. It's you're either at work or you're not at work. So I mean, for me, I'm a bit flexible because I've reached that point whereby my boss trusts me. I'm all about output. So he really doesn't look so much to me, what are you doing now, what are you doing? Because he knows I'll deliver on the timelines that we have agreed, whether I stay and work late or I come in late the next day. So we have that arrangement. But there are some organizations whereby once you walk in, even you can't be on the phone, you have to switch off your phone or put it in silent. You cannot be seen doing any other thing but work. So the work ethics here is really at a much higher level than in Uganda. Again, the time management. Francis explained it very clearly. If you have an appointment with someone, you have to be at the dot. You know, there's nothing like, oh, 5 minutes late. I struggled a little bit here because there are equipments which we have to use as a group. You know, I'm at a university and there are like 5 different research organizations. So there's a core facility where we have to book and use an equipment. Now, in the beginning, I couldn't type myself very well. So I would time, okay, I'll be there at 2 and I'll finish using the equipment at 3. Now, as I prepare my samples to use the equipment, somehow I would lose time and I end up going like at 2:15. Okay, your time has already been taken by 15 minutes. Now, if the experiment was going to take me an hour, it would mean I would have to stop at 3:15. You understand? Now, at 3, there's another person who has booked to use the machine. So while you are there trying to say you can borrow more time, the guy has come and he's like, man, your time is up, please move. And before you know it, they're writing to you emails, you know, your time, your management of time is encroaching on other people's, and you're being fined in terms of payment. So you have to pay for the other person's extra time. So the issue of time management, here I really realized that time, when they say time is money, time is money. People who work a shift or hours, the moment their clock starts, you have to put in those hours. Once they are done, they are going to another shift. So you can't delay them. So those are some of the few shockers that I saw here that are different from my country. In terms of,
Finally,
you know, the road.
the cost of living. Cost of
Yeah.
living. Let's talk about that as we finish.
Yeah, the cost of living, of course, it is high. One time I told someone that the apartment where I'm staying, the pay is $1,300, and I'm staying at a cheap in a cheap location where it's not a gated community. So $1,300 is an equivalent to about maybe 4.5 million Uganda shillings. Yeah, about 4.5. Now, to tell someone that my apartment where I stay, I pay 4.5 5 million Uganda shillings just for accommodation. Someone will be like, what? Can't you find a place where you pay maybe?
And how big is it? Is it
So
two
that's
bedroom?
that's a 2-bedroom apartment. But I got a 2-bedroom apartment because eventually I wanted to get someone to share with the space, and I reduced on the payment. But even there, still, what you got, someone who is staying in a studio is paying maybe like $900, which the difference isn't much.
Hey.
So you rather go for a 2-bedroom apartment, try to get a roommate, and you guys split, and each pays like maybe 650, than staying in a studio and you're almost paying $1,000. So anyway, cost of living is high. So what I always tell people, I had some friends of mine who were always writing to me, you send me, yeah, I'm in this problem, and I told him, you know what, I can't help you now, but you wait for me at the end of the month, because they thought that maybe you have money there and then to help, not knowing that the money you have is actually just is enough to take you through the month. So I tell people sometimes when I make a pledge to them, I have to sit down and say, okay, I'm not going to have lunch for 3 days. And I save that money such that I'm able to send maybe 100K to this individual. But because they can't know that, but that's the only way I can help, because I can't get money and now I pay for that individual, because it means either I miss my lunch, or I miss my gas, or I miss so the the life here is so strict in terms of expensiveness, and I mean how expensive things are, and so you have to live on a budget. So it's very expensive. You can earn money, which is, someone may think it's a lot of money, but as you earn it, you spend it. So you have to be very careful to try and live within your means so that you save some money and do other stuff. Yeah, so that's why people end up having 2 jobs, because one job is not enough for them. So they say, okay, I'll have one job to pay for the bills, and then another job, I can take on another job where that money now I can use it for my other developmental projects. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Bob.
But
of course, our time is gone. Benson, you have something to say?
Yeah, I want to ask that thing of working on 2 jobs, Bob. How do you manage? Like, when do you get time to do the second job? When do you get time to your personal to rest and all that?
Yeah, so 2 jobs is really easy to get. As I said, time is here. If someone says that I'm giving you time from 9 to 5, at 5 dot, it's like someone rings a bell, your lesson is over and you're supposed to move out, or it's break time. So you can have a job, let's maybe say, I'll talk now, because I'm not doing 2 jobs at the moment, because my program was restricting me to the university until I get like a green card or that, then I can now be flexible. But let me give you an example of people who work 2 shifts, let's say in Boston or wherever, like they can have a shift where they work from 9 in the morning, okay, up to 3 in the afternoon, okay. And then they from there they can have another job where they work from that 3 in the afternoon to 11 p.m. Okay, so those are 2 jobs, those are 2 shifts. Okay. Now I'll give an example of the one who I know, who I interact with. Like they have a shift from 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. in the night, and then another shift from 11 p.m. to 9 a.m. the next morning. So basically they have a night job and a kind of like an evening job. So from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. they are free, okay? But they are able to also sleep and rest on their night job. The one of 11 p.m. to 9 a.m. is more like, overnight stay, make sure that if someone wakes up and they are in trouble, you're able to help them. So basically they sleep, they can sleep. So, but they're on job at the same time, more like on job, like overlooking and all that. So that's how the shift thing works. And then on the weekends, they are free. They can decide to be on free. So the person I'm talking about doesn't work on Saturday, they don't work on Sunday. So they have those 2 shifts. They put in 80 hours in a week. Averagely, everyone works 40 hours a week. But if you work 2 shifts, it means you're putting in 80 hours in a week. So that's how the two jobs work.
80 hours, eh?
Yes. A week. That's the 2 shifts. The 2 shifts.
Yeah, Bob, here we are naturally lazy. And I will tell you, for a week of 5 days, we effectively work like three days, and we work like 6 hours in a day. Now just imagine you're moving from that, and then now you're working for all that time, So, it's really tasking,
Yeah, and some even work 3 jobs. I'm telling you, there are Ugandans I know here who are working 3 jobs. So basically, they move from this ship. Some people don't even stay in their homes. But the guy at the end of the year, he's having over 700 million shillings. You know, that is their yearly income, 700 million shillings. But the guy is working 3 jobs. Then he comes to Uganda, does a construction of a flat in 3, 4 months, and they go back. And you're wondering, how are these people able to? I'm telling you, people here work. They work. Because anyway, the other issue is that there's no one who there's no one who you're going to call and like you're asking them for, like in Uganda the way it is, let's go hang out at this place and watch money, let's go. People are on basically you are alone. So
it takes away your social
life. Now, instead of being home and doing nothing, hanging out with no one, let me go and sit at a shift. I earn my money. Hey, so that is how the environment forces. In Uganda, the environment is so conducive for Rugambo, for jazzing, for doing nothing. It's so conducive. Everywhere you turn, there's a chibanda for football. Everywhere you turn, there is a drinking place. This one is so it is very easy to turn around and hang out and kill time. Whereas here, you are at home, you can't watch a movie. You're like, now instead of watching a movie, why don't I go to a shift? I take care of this mokade or these people with disability. Just look over them, make sure they don't get hurt, make sure they receive the service they need, and I earn my money. So people work. Yeah.
What was it, Sematimba, who was saying that the work ethic of Ugandans in Europe and America, if they bring it here in Uganda, they will be billionaires.
Yes. Give me an example of people in Uganda who work 2 jobs. Do you know many? How many do you know who work 2 jobs?
There are other people in Chikubo.
No, but what I'm saying, like someone has an 8 to 5 job, even the Chikubo people, they still work in Chikubo, maybe up to 7. But from there, guy now we're connecting to work. Tell me.
There are very few.
Yeah. Yet here you'll find that 80% of those who are working now, let alone the indigenous Americans. Indigenous Americans have their 1 job. The moment someone takes on a 2nd job, they're like, you what? Why are you taking on a 2nd job? So here, so the people actually who are working 2 jobs are the hard workers, who came here to make money. So yeah. So that's the enemy Ugandans who came here for Cheyo, they're averaging 2 jobs.
But then now the social life, do you have any friends or it's work?
People don't have time to socialize, but in the lab, for example, where I work, we hang out once in a while because we go out and hang out once in a while, but it's not something that we have to plan it, you get. But also here I have for example, here in Atlanta, the Uganda community is there are a few Ugandans that I know. So when there are those public holidays, like big holidays like Christmas, I'm talking about public holidays, maybe Easter weekend, Thanksgiving. So usually we can go, there's a Ugandan who usually invites us. We go to their place, we play games, we eat Ugandan food. So we always look forward to that social gathering. You get? But in a year, you find that those are like maybe 5 times in a year. So, so now that is where we hang out, we stay late. People who can call in, can call off a shift and ask for an off. So that's the time they because we are talking our Uganda, we are playing Ugandan music. We are basically having a party, People are drinking, people are playing pool. He's a good guy who has a big house with a pool table with, you know, like it's a good, we don't go out to a club or whatever. It's just someone's home. And then we're eating matoke, you know, lumonde, muhogo. We are eating Ugandan food. So it feels so home. So once in a while, those are the social gatherings that keep us our social group, because it's very hard for these people to even understand that you can go and hang out at someone's place for an entire day, one entire night. Because here people are like, what am I doing all that time? Here people to hang out, it be like 1 or 2 hours. So you cannot make friends here. They will not understand that kind of hanging out.
But Bob, that's a very hard life. Now you've made it sound so miserable.
Yeah, because the mission that brought us here, we came here on a mission. That is why we have to be in and out. We know that I'm here for these years, do this ABC, I'll be out and go do my other stuff. It's a mission. I'm here on a mission. So when they send you on a mission, like they send someone to Afghanistan for a mission, you rarely find them wasting time. You know, they know the mission that took them there. If they find some small time, they will enjoy. But you know the mission you came for.
But there's that capture where some people stay and then you find you plan to be there for 5 years, but then you find after 5 years you can't move. But then people end up staying there for 25 years and they come here when they have nothing.
Yeah. So again, I say you have to target. You have to be intentional, because once you get sucked in this life here, you will not save money. For example, if you come here and you take a car on loan, you know, because they give you a car, you can pay for it for 7 years, you know. So now if you have mortgage, you also have a mortgage, you know, you will end up, you will see that whatever money you're making is just for you to spend here. Okay. If you don't want to share an apartment, you want to have your own house, you know, you will pay $2,000, $3,000. Now, how much money are you earning, and how much money are you going to save and do investment? And then you find such people are even working one job. So you have to be intentional with everything. Yeah.
Okay.
Guys, we need to stop this here. Thank you very much.
Okay.
We'll meet again on Monday. Have a good one.
Very good night.